A young woman fled the devastation of war in search of safety in America. Yet, her life ended in the very country she believed would protect her. This video presents facts that shift how we understand her journey. You may realize that her death affects not only those closest to her, but people far beyond her family. Her loss left a deep impact, not just in the hearts of loved ones, but across the world. What truly occurred that night? Why did the system designed to protect her fall short? Today, you'll see what has been hidden behind the news reports, the failures, the unlikely chain of events, and the oversights that set the tragedy in motion. Ireina's story begins in Kiev, where she was born on May 22, 2002 to Anna and Stanislav Zeretski. She grew up alongside her older sister, Valeria, and her younger brother, Bowden. Her parents enforced rules that were strict, yet reasonable, always placing education ahead of recreation. Each child had responsibilities and accomplishments were acknowledged. Their household valued structure, accountability, and a strong work ethic. During high school, Ireina discovered her love for the arts. She enrolled in a vocational college, where she studied painting, restoration, and techniques for preserving cultural heritage. At the same time, she repaired clothes and crafted bags, earning her own income. Her family supported her completely. Her father secured an internship for her with a restoration specialist. Her mother offered steady guidance, and her siblings photographed her projects to help build her portfolio. The family's priorities were clear. Education came first, finances were openly discussed, and digital safety mattered. Those years in Kiev molded Ireina's defining qualities: discipline, determination, precision, and a rare blend of creativity and practicality. These qualities became the bedrock of her goals and the clarity she had for her future. But everything shifted dramatically in early February 2022. Kiev, the city they loved, came under attack, and each morning began with the wail of air raid sirens. For a time they tried to maintain a sense of normalcy by gathering food, cooking meals, and assisting neighbors. But that illusion quickly crumbled. Stanislav remained to fortify their home while Anna and the children sought safety in cold, damp basement shelters. From the moment the danger appeared, uncertainty became a constant presence. Confronted with this frightening new reality, they made the painful choice to leave Ukraine. Despite their profound connection to the place they had always called home, survival, especially for the children, became the top priority. Anna assumed the responsibility of finding a safe way forward. She researched evacuation options, contacted relatives living abroad, and learned what was required to seek asylum. Their objective was simple: choose a place where the children could continue their education and finally regain a sense of peace. After considering Poland, Germany, and the Czech Republic, they ultimately decided on the United States. They had friends there willing to help them start over. Their departure was planned with care. Ireina gathered her college art pieces and a handful of personal belongings that meant everything to her. Her sketchbooks, drawings, and some sculpting tools. Valeria took charge of the family's documents and medical files. Baden was given permission to bring a few books and his favorite toys to make the transition a little easier. Stanislav, though remaining in Ukraine, played a crucial part in arranging their escape. The decision weighed heavily on him. Watching his family depart while he stayed behind was deeply painful. Still, he felt obligated to remain and safeguard their home. Once the family crossed the border, a new phase of their lives began. They had to navigate paperwork, endure interviews, and formally secure their refugee status. Each step required patience and endurance. They understood that their lives were now split into before and after, with no possibility of returning to what once was. Leaving meant letting go of everything familiar. Yet, it also offered their children a chance at survival. By the summer of 2022, Ireina reached the United States with her mother, sister, and brother. They made a new home in Charlotte, North Carolina. There, they received temporary housing, support from local organizations, and a provisional legal status while their asylum application was processed. The adjustment was difficult. Learning a new language, finding employment, and adapting to an unfamiliar culture all posed challenges. But Ireina viewed it as a chance to start fresh. She knew that persistence and effort were the only ways to build a new life. The Zeretski family stayed closely united in America. Anna concentrated on keeping the home stable and helping the children settle in. Valeria assisted her mother while Ireina took initiative, enrolling in English classes and looking for part-time work to speed up their integration. Baden began attending school and picked up the language day by day. Stanislav, still in Ukraine, kept in touch through video calls, clinging to the hope that their family would eventually reunite. Charlotte greeted the Zeretski family with a stark introduction to the demands of starting over, endless paperwork, strict procedures, and the urgent need to earn a living. Their first months were swallowed by legal requirements and the struggle to maintain stability. Ireina chose the most practical route, studying and working simultaneously. She secured a part-time position at a nearby pizza shop, taking evening shifts so she could attend English classes during the day. The city's public transit system made it possible for her to balance everything. She carefully planned her route, timing her schedule around train arrivals and transfers. At the pizza shop, Ireina handled a wide range of tasks, taking orders, making pizzas, packing meals for delivery, managing the register, and keeping the space clean. She quickly learned the point-of-sale system, food safety rules, and correct storage procedures. Her precision and dedication to maintaining cleanliness soon stood out, earning the attention of management. Even during the busiest, most stressful shifts, she arrived on time and often volunteered for extra hours to help support her family. In addition to her job, Ireina began volunteering at a nearby senior care facility. She assisted residents by escorting them to meals, tracking medication schedules, recording concerns, and helping them make video calls with loved ones. Staff members praised her steady demeanor and clear communication, which made her well suited for working with larger groups, while improving her English. Ireina also enrolled in courses at a community college. Her objectives were straightforward: to speak confidently at work, and to handle paperwork independently. She kept a thorough vocabulary notebook, filling it with useful words from daily life, banking terms, insurance phrases, traffic rules, appliance instructions, and more. She practiced pronunciation to avoid confusion during phone orders. The family followed a deliberate and organized financial plan. Ireina carefully tracked all monthly expenses: rent, transportation, food, phone bills, and tuition. She set aside a portion of her earnings for savings, planning to eventually obtain a driver's license and pay for extra classes. Her siblings assisted with translations and daily tasks, while her mother handled legal paperwork and appointments. Their 2-year plan was clear. First, bring her English to college-level fluency. Second, secure a driver's license and purchase an affordable used car, essential for evening shifts. Third, broaden her skill set, learn to operate industrial sewing machines, and complete a basic animal care course at a local center. These steps would open doors for legal side work, and she also hoped for a potential internship at a cultural institution in the city. This structured routine became Ireina's daily life in Charlotte. Evenings were filled with work shifts, days with classes, and weekends with volunteer hours. Ireina carried the structure and discipline from her past into this demanding routine, tracking every detail, staying organized and never procrastinating. She documented her progress and reviewed her goals each month, giving herself a sense of control and a steady way to keep moving forward without losing focus. On the evening of August 22, 2025, Ireina Zeretski began her scheduled shift at the pizza shop. Her shift was planned to end by 1000 p.m., leaving just enough time to catch her usual train home. As usual, she logged into the system, checked her register assignment, and reviewed the evening's tasks. That night, her responsibilities included handling and packing orders, restocking supplies, and keeping her station tidy during slower moments. She managed the register and ensured that food preparation stayed on schedule. At the end of her shift, she followed all closing procedures, wiping down her station, organizing boxes, and completing the inventory log. Every task was finished on time and by the book. Around 9:50 p.m., the shift manager gave her the go-ahead. Ireina logged out, changed out of her uniform, and collected her personal belongings. Before leaving, she checked the transit schedule and confirmed that the next Blue Line train would get her home on time. The walk to the station was familiar and short. She took the main road, well lit and marked with traffic signals at each intersection. Passing Several crosswalks, she arrived at the East-West Boulevard platform and saw on the arrival board that the next train was just minutes away. The station was calm and ordinary. A few passengers were scattered along the platform, standing behind the safety lines. Some used vending machines while others waited quietly near the boarding areas. Ireina took her place at a safe distance from the edge, pulled out her transit pass, and prepared to board. Over the loudspeakers, routine announcements provided train arrival updates and reminders about safety and etiquette. The train arrived right on time. Doors opened along the platform and she waited for passengers to exit before stepping through a middle door of one car. Careful not to block anyone, she spotted a seat near the center of the car along the aisle, placed her backpack at her feet, held her phone in her hand, and plugged in her headphones. Transit rules required passengers to keep aisles clear and avoid using extra seats for personal items, so she made sure to sit neatly without taking up additional space. The train departed smoothly with stop announcements coming through clearly. A few passengers were scattered throughout the car, some on their phones, others reading, with plenty of empty seats remaining. Her choice of seat allowed for a quick exit at her stop. Sitting by the aisle gave her direct access to the doors, avoiding any awkward maneuvering. She double-checked the route map above the door to ensure she wouldn't miss her transfer. Her phone remained on for notifications, ready in case a reply was needed. Up to that point, the evening had gone exactly as planned. Shift completed, route confirmed, and the trip began on schedule. The next steps were routine. Wait for the correct stop and exit on time. Internal surveillance captures a continuous view from a ceiling-mounted camera supplemented by a doorway angle. Ireina sits in the middle of the car. Moments later, a man appears behind her, occupying the window seat of the adjacent row, separated from her by a single seat back. There is no interaction or conversation. The first minute after departure passes quietly. Passengers sit or stand with empty seats scattered throughout. Ireina remains still, facing forward and not engaging with anyone nearby. The man also stays motionless, gazing out the window, his torso slightly angled toward the wall. The door camera confirms no movement in that area. In the second minute, however, the man subtly shifts his posture. He shifts his shoulder forward, edging closer to the aisle in a subtle movement. His hand slips into his hoodie pocket, pausing for a few seconds before checking that the aisle is clear. Nearby, passengers remain unaware and no conversations are audible. At the start of the third minute, he adjusts his position again. He slightly raises himself and reaches into his pocket once more. On the enlarged footage, a folding object becomes visible in his hand. The blades are straightened and the locking mechanism is clearly seen. His grip tightens around the handle with his thumb sliding along the lock. Ireina continues to look straight ahead. The distance between them unchanged and the man gives no outward indication of his Actions. In the 4th minute, the attack takes place. The man rises, steps slightly to the side, and delivers 3 rapid strikes aimed at Ireina's neck. Frame-by-frame analysis shows the motions were quick and almost continuous. No verbal threats or obvious preparatory gestures are recorded from the assailant. Ireina tries to stand but loses her balance. Nearby passengers instinctively step back and one person moves quickly toward the front of the car. After the attack, the assailant shifts toward the aisle and walks steadily to the next section of the train car. The object he used disappears from the camera's view. Door mounted. Cameras capture scattered passenger reactions. Some press against poles to reach seats on the opposite side, while another hurries toward the passage between cars. In this critical moment, no one physically intervenes. Almost immediately, a passenger from the front row signals toward the operator's cab. On the footage, he glances back, gestures with his hand, and then moves out of sight behind the petition. Shouting exclamations can be heard throughout the car, but no coordinated response emerges. Ireina remains in her section. 2 other passengers appear nearby, looking around and trying to assess the situation from the first movement of the assailant until the train comes to a full stop roughly 2 minutes later. During this time, the doors remain closed and the train continues toward the next platform. All on board systems, including lighting and announcements, function normally. Cameras show that the attacker does not return to his seat or approach the injured passenger again. Instead, he continues straight down the aisle. The first emergency calls are made almost immediately after the attack. 1 passenger from the same car reports a woman injured by a knife lying on the floor and unable to move. The dispatcher asks for specifics, the train line, direction, and nearest station. The caller cannot identify the exact car number, but describes interior landmarks and confirms the train is headed toward East-West Boulevard. This information is relayed immediately to a police patrol and a county medical team in Mecklenburg County. The call is classified as a trauma with bleeding, noting the possibility of an armed suspect still on board. The dispatcher instructs the caller on basic first aid and cautions against moving the victim. A second call follows from a neighboring car. An eyewitness reports seeing the attacker walking down the aisle, apparently moving toward the exit at the next stop. His description of the man's appearance and direction allows police to prepare for an interception on the platform. A third call comes from the platform itself, where the caller sees a man stepping off the train who matches the description being broadcast over the radio. The dispatcher instructs the caller not to approach the suspect but to keep him in sight. Meanwhile, the dispatcher remains on the line with a passenger still inside the train car, where Ireina lies. Her breathing is labored, but she shows signs of life. Eyewitnesses follow instructions carefully. One applies steady pressure to the wound while another monitors her breathing and reports any changes. The dispatcher could hear the conductor's announcements, the train braking, and the doors opening. Cues that allowed emergency crews to coordinate their response precisely. As the train stopped, the dispatcher instructed witnesses to meet the medics at the doors while maintaining pressure on the injury and warned that police would be detaining the suspect on the platform. Meanwhile, all calls were logged and time-stamped, later becoming part of the official evidence. As the train arrived at East-West Boulevard Station, Charlotte police, already briefed on the suspect's description, positioned officers at every exit to prevent escape. A man in dark clothing stepped off the train, matching the description exactly. The man was D. Carlo Brown. He did not attempt to flee. Instead, he walked calmly, scanning his surroundings. Officers ordered him to stop and raise his hands, and he complied without resistance. He was quickly handcuffed, and a knife with traces of blood was recovered during a search. After the arrest, he was escorted through a secure passage and handed over to a patrol unit. At the same time, paramedics entered the train car. Passengers pointed to the young woman lying on the floor. She was unconscious and not breathing, having sustained 3 stab wounds, 2 to the neck and 1 to the chest. Witnesses explained that they had attempted to control the bleeding by pressing clothing against the injuries, but their efforts had been unsuccessful. The medics immediately began resuscitation, applying an oxygen mask and using specialized dressings. For several minutes, medics worked to restore her heartbeat, but the severe neck injuries and massive blood loss made it impossible to save Ireina. She was pronounced dead inside the train car. Following the official declaration, police secured the train. The car where Ireina had been was closed to passengers, while investigators documented the scene. Forensic technicians photographed the area, collected the knife, and secured her personal belongings. Passengers who had been nearby were asked to stay and provide statements. The atmosphere on the platform was tense and somber. Many stood in shock, some in tears, struggling to process the events. Police reassured the crowd that the threat had been neutralized and urged calm. Multiple witnesses confirmed that the attack had occurred without warning, and that the victim had no opportunity to defend herself. The arrest had proceeded without incident, allowing law enforcement to focus entirely on the investigation. All preliminary evidence was collected at the scene and statements were recorded. Timestamps documented the train's arrival, the suspect's detention, and the official medical declaration of death. With these steps completed, the first phase of the tragedy concluded. The suspect was in custody and the case officially transitioned into a criminal investigation. After the medical examiner's formal pronouncement, Ireina's body was transferred for forensic examination. Experts confirmed the initial police findings. 3 stab wounds, 2 to the neck, caused catastrophic blood loss. 1 wound had severed a major artery, making survival impossible, even with immediate medical Intervention, the autopsy results became a key piece of evidence legally establishing the act as homicide. While arranging the funeral in the U.S., the Zeretski family faced considerable difficulties. Ireina's mother and sister, living in America, took on the full responsibility of managing paperwork and coordinating with local authorities. Her father, still in Ukraine, was unable to travel and had to participate in the preparations remotely via video call. The inability to say goodbye in person was a profound emotional strain. The funeral was held in Charlotte. Ireina was remembered as warm, kind, and open, someone who had earned the respect of those around her. In her new country, at her workplace, colleagues at the pizza shop recalled her willingness to help others and take extra shifts without complaint. At the senior care facility, she was known for showing compassion and care while handling the most challenging patients. The ceremony ended with a prayer and a moment of silence. The local Ukrainian community stepped in to provide financial support, helping the family cover burial costs. Ireina's story became a poignant reminder of how war and migration can drastically alter a person's life while also highlighting how compassion and resilience can endure even in the darkest times. At the time of his arrest, Carlos Brown Jr. had a long history with both law enforcement and mental health services. Records from his early childhood are sparse, but it is known that his family lived in North Carolina and his first encounters with the law began during his teenage years. Court documents indicate that his criminal record began in 2007 as a juvenile offender. Over the following 7 years, he committed a series of offenses, including theft, burglary, robberies involving a dangerous weapon, and threats against others. Although some of his earlier cases were dismissed, Brown's behavior remained unchanged, and he never maintained steady employment. In 2014, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for armed robbery. His release in 2020, however, did not mark an end to his criminal activity, and he soon appeared in police reports again. In early 2021, he was arrested for assaulting his sister, causing injury, and later for property damage and unlawful entry into a location from which he had been barred. In July 2022, he was involved in a disorderly conduct incident, but that too failed to curb his behavior. In January 2023, a different type of case emerged. Misuse of the emergency line. Brown repeatedly called police from a medical facility, claiming that an artificial material inside his body was controlling his actions and movements. Authorities classified the matter as a medical issue. Authorities advised him to seek specialized treatment, and after repeated emergency calls, he was detained for improper use of the emergency system. He was later released without bond under a promise to appear in court. Family medical records indicate a schizophrenia diagnosis first made in 2014. His mother repeatedly sought involuntary hospitalization due to aggressive episodes at home. These hospitalizations typically lasted around 2 weeks followed by short periods of supervision. In subsequent years, he continued to experience delusions involving mind control and external influence. He never participated in long-term outpatient care, resulting in repeated relapses between 2014 and 2025. Brown struggled to form stable social connections. His mother and sister eventually cut off contact for their safety, making cohabitation impossible. Records suggest that at times he lacked permanent housing, relying on shelters and temporary accommodations. He had not achieved financial independence and held no steady employment at the start of 2025. During a court hearing for one of his cases, a judge released him on his own recognizance despite his lack of permanent housing and a long history of repeated offenses. Oversight conditions were minimal, simply appearing on a set date and following basic restrictions. As a result, he remained without consistent medical care or behavioral monitoring. It was the outcome of failures in both the justice system and the mental health system. Judicial reasoning played a role. In the absence of new serious charges, judges often follow standard procedures granting release on a promise to appear with unsecured bonds and minimal restrictions. Judges consider factors such as the seriousness of the current offense, past failures to appear, residence, and social connections. Older violent incidents lose weight over time, and lacking a permanent address is seldom treated as a standalone risk factor. Risk assessment systems, which rely heavily on statistics, produce average scores. Even repeated arrests for violent acts, threats toward family members, or clear inability to control one's behavior may not result in a high-risk classification without a new major charge. Individual warning signs often get lost in these averages. Supervision for someone released on a promise to appear is minimal, typically just court notices. Use of ankle monitors or frequent check-ins depends on available funding and is applied selectively, particularly when the person has no fixed address. Notifications may fail to reach them. Contact information can change and enforcement of sanctions is often delayed. Mental health intervention, such as involuntary hospitalization, is only permitted when there is an immediate threat. Short-term hospitalizations can provide temporary stabilization, but they do not guarantee that a person will adhere to a treatment plan after release. Outpatient clinics often have long wait lists, and someone without family or stable housing can easily fall through the cracks. Court-ordered psychiatric evaluations can take weeks, during which the defendant remains without treatment or supervision. Information is fragmented, as courts, prosecutors, defense attorneys, and medical institutions operate from separate databases. Diagnoses are often recorded only in general terms. Details about therapy, interruptions or missed appointments are typically inaccessible, and a doctor's recommendations are not binding on supervision agencies. Police reports of domestic incidents usually do not lead to restrictions until the case reaches court. Emergency calls involving irrational claims are generally treated as medical issues and due to a shortage of psychiatric beds. The individual is often only given a pamphlet and contact numbers. Repeat emergency calls are often recorded as misuse, shifting attention from the individual's need for treatment to their infractions. Transit safety is limited. Agencies cannot guarantee security personnel in every car, and patrols may be elsewhere, creating delays in response. Reliance on cameras and police contact alone cannot prevent sudden attacks. Ultimately, with low thresholds for release, minimal supervision, and fragmented mental health care, even a long and violent history does not ensure someone is kept off the streets. The system relies on a fixed address, family support, and voluntary treatment. Resources Brown simply lacked. Federal prosecutors have charged Carlos Brown Jr. with murder committed on public transit, a federal offense that allows the case to be tried nationally and potentially exposes him to the death penalty. Prosecutors have stated their intent to seek the harshest possible sentence, while the state is also pursuing a first-degree murder charge. Federal jurisdiction allows the Department of Justice to directly seek the death penalty. According to case records, investigators found no connection between Brown and Ina's background. The attack was entirely random. Ireina was in the wrong place at the wrong time with no evidence of robbery or any personal gain despite Brown's prior psychiatric diagnosis. Authorities suspect the assault may have been influenced by delusional beliefs noted in his medical history. However, the prosecution is proceeding on the basis of intentional homicide, postponing consideration of Brown's mental state until the forensic evaluation is complete. For Ina, her loved ones, and the public, the lack of a clear motive has made this tragedy even more devastating. Under federal law, the attack is classified as senseless violence. 2 sentencing options exist: life imprisonment or the death penalty. Before pursuing capital punishment, the Justice Department must consider aggravating factors, including prior offenses, the brutality of the act, the victim's death, the randomness of the attack, and the fact that it occurred in a public space. In Brown's case, all of these factors apply. The defense is expected to argue that Brown suffers from a serious mental disorder, challenging his capacity to fully understand his actions. However, prosecutors have already declared their intent to pursue the death penalty, making this a landmark case. If you found this case fascinating, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We post crime case videos every night. Until next time, stay sharp, stay vigilant. Music.